Everyone's played it once. A game so simple it doesn't need rules written down. Just a voice counting in the dark and the sound of your own breath as you try not to be found. You remember it, don't you? That sharp silence when the counting stopped. The cold tingle that crept up your spine because suddenly you weren't sure who else was playing. Some say the game never really ends, that once you've played, something follows, watching from the corners, waiting for you to hide again. A soft whisper, ready or not. Maybe it's just a memory, or maybe the game's still going on. Because tonight, you'll hear three stories, three different nights, three players who thought they were alone, but someone else was counting too. Before we begin, turn off the lights, close the door, and if you're brave enough, listen till the end. Because every story tonight started the same way, with a laugh, a dare, and a simple game. The sound of a light switch clicking off. So, subscribe before the lights go out. Because tonight, you'll hear three stories that prove one thing: some games never end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was 15 when it happened. It was a Friday night in late September, the kind where the air starts to taste cold again. My parents had gone out to dinner with friends, said they'd be home late. I had the house to myself, or at least I thought I did. Chris came over, my best friend and neighbor. We were bored, sitting in the basement, half watching some old movie. That's when he joked, "Let's play hide and seek." I laughed at first. It sounded stupid. But when the lights went out, it didn't feel like a joke anymore. We set the rules: no going outside, no attic, no crawl space. Everything else, fair game. Chris wanted to hide first. I covered my eyes in the living room and started counting. 50. That's what I was supposed to reach. At first, I could hear his footsteps, fast, playful. Then, silence. When I finished, I said, "Ready or not, here I come." I started in the kitchen, empty. Checked the bathroom, the closet near the front door, nothing. When I climbed the stairs, every step felt heavier than the last. The house was quiet, too quiet. My parents' room, empty. My room, empty. The last door at the end of the hall was cracked open, the guest room. I pushed it open. Nothing but still air. I checked under the bed, empty. Opened the closet, nothing. That's when I realized he wasn't upstairs. So I went back down. The basement was colder, still smelling like dust and laundry detergent. I checked behind the washer, under the stairs, and finally found him, curled up behind some boxes, laughing. He asked, "How long did it take you?" I said, "Too long." We switched. Now it was my turn to hide. I went upstairs and slid under the guest bed, pulling the bed skirt down. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing against the floorboards. Then, footsteps. Slow. Careful. Chris was looking. The steps entered the guest room. I could hear him breathing. Heavy. Close. Then, silence. I held my breath, waiting for him to yank the bed skirt, but he didn't. The footsteps turned and walked away. I waited and waited. Finally, I crawled out. Downstairs, I called out, "Okay, I'm done. You found me yet?" Chris's voice answered from the basement. "I'm still looking. Where are you hiding?" My stomach twisted. "I'm in the kitchen," I said. I already came out. He appeared, breathing hard. "How'd you get up here so fast?" I told him I'd been under the guest bed. He frowned. "I checked that room. I heard someone moving in there." I told him I hadn't moved at all. We both laughed it off. Nervous, fake laughter. But something felt wrong. We played again, but I couldn't shake it. Every creak of the floor sounded alive. Every shadow seemed to stretch when I wasn't looking. Then, from upstairs, we froze. Chris whispered, "Was that your parents?" "They're not home yet," I said. Another sound, slow, dragging steps across the hall. Someone was walking up there. I grabbed the fireplace poker. Chris stayed behind me. We crept up the stairs. Each step groaned like it didn't want us there. At the top, the guest room door, now closed. I knew for a fact I'd left it open. From inside came a sound, fabric sliding across carpet. Chris whispered, "We should go." But I couldn't. I had to see. My hand shook as I reached for the knob. Creak! The door swings open. The room was empty. No one there. Closet half open. I yanked it wide. Nothing. We both exhaled. Shaky, fake relief. Then we had it. Someone else was in the house. We ran. Down the hall, through the kitchen, out the back door. Didn't stop until we reached Chris's porch. His parents called the police. They searched the house. No sign of forced entry. No footprints. No one hiding in the basement. They said it was just our imagination, but we knew what we had. I didn't sleep for weeks. Every creak sounded like footsteps, every door a breath. That was the last time I ever played hide and seek, because that night we learned something. Sometimes, when you hide, you're not the only one waiting to be found. Our street ended where the woods began. The kind of woods that swallowed sound. The kind that looked the same in every direction after the sun went down. When I was 14, that's where we spent every weekend. A gang of 5 kids with scraped knees, flashlights, and more courage than sense. It was August. Hot, humid, the air heavy with bugs. We'd been playing since sunset, our parents' voices long faded from the porches. That night, we decided to play hide and seek, only this time in the woods. Jason volunteered to count first. The rest of us, me, Tyler, his little brother Matt, and 2 kids from down the street, Eric and Jason, ran into the darkness like it was nothing. The rule was simple: stay close enough to hear the seeker's call. But the deeper you hid, the braver you were. I followed Tyler past the first few trees, then split off, found a fallen log and crouched behind it. The earth was damp, the smell of pine thick in my nose. I could hear Jason's voice behind me, counting. Then silence. The kind of silence that makes your heart sound too loud. I heard footsteps, slow, careful. Leaves crunching under weight. I froze, thinking it was Jason. The steps came closer, then stopped. Someone stood there, just beyond the trees. I waited. No flashlight, no whisper, just the sound of someone standing still. Every instinct screamed to move, but the rule said, "Stay quiet." So I did. After what felt like forever, the footsteps started again, moving deeper into the woods. When I couldn't hear them anymore, I crawled out. Jason's voice echoed from the yard. "Round's over. Everyone out." I ran back, my heart still pounding. Tyler was already there. Eric too. Jason laughed. "Man, I couldn't find half of you." A minute later, Matt came crashing out of the trees, covered in dirt and twigs. He said nobody could have found him, that he'd hidden behind an old stump way back near the creek. I told them I'd almost been caught when Jason walked right past me. Jason frowned. I didn't go that far in. I stopped smiling. Then who did? Everyone shrugged it off. We laughed. We always laughed. But for the first time that summer, the woods didn't sound friendly anymore. Next round, I was Seeker. I leaned against the tree, covering my eyes. One, two, three. When I reached 50, I shouted that I was coming. The yards were easy. Found Eric behind the shed, Tyler in the bushes. That left Jason and Matt somewhere in the woods. I turned off my flashlight to listen. At first, nothing. Then, that same rhythm of footsteps, slow, deliberate. I whispered, Jason? No reply. The steps moved ahead of me, just out of the beam's reach. I followed the noise deeper, heart hammering. Then I heard Jason's voice behind me. Round's over. I spun around. He was back at the yard waving. I stared into the dark trees ahead where the footsteps had been. Nothing moved. We played again, but it wasn't fun anymore. Every round felt colder, quieter. Every crack of a twig made me flinch. Sometimes I swore I could see a shadow between the trunks, tall, still, like it was waiting for someone to move first. Tyler told me to stop being paranoid. Probably a deer, he said, but deer don't whisper. The next time I hid, I stayed near the edge of the yard, didn't dare go deeper. For the last round, Jason wanted one final game. Said he'd count to 100 this time. His voice echoed as we ran. 28, 29. I crouched low in the tall grass near the first tree line. The porch light flickered behind me, barely reaching my spot. The woods stretched out in front of me, black and endless. Then came it, that same whisper. Too close, right behind me. I turned slowly, expecting one of the guys. No one was there. Leaves rustled a few feet away. Footsteps, heavy but careful. Someone was walking parallel to me. I held my breath and watched a shape move through the trees, too tall to be any of my friends. He didn't crouch, didn't hide. He just moved. Jason's voice cut through the air again, calling everyone back. I bolted toward the house, my legs shaking. Everyone was already there laughing, except me. I told them I heard whispering in the woods. They laughed harder, until Matt spoke. He said, Did anyone else see the man? The laughter stopped. Matt said he saw a tall figure standing between the trees. No flashlight, no movement, just standing there, watching. Jason told him he was crazy. Eric said maybe it was a hunter, but I knew better, because I'd heard it breathing. We ended the night early. Nobody said why. We just didn't want to play anymore. When I got home, I sat on my bed staring at the window, waiting for the sound of footsteps in the grass. They never came. But in the silence, I could still hear the counting. And I realized something that made my stomach drop. Whoever was in the woods never stopped counting. We never played in those woods again. Some nights, when the air is still and the trees start to move, I swear I can hear that whisper again. Somewhere out there, still waiting for us to hide. He walked out of the woods wearing jeans in July. That's the first thing I remember about him, the jeans. The second thing was how he smiled without blinking. We were out back playing basketball that afternoon. Me, Ryan, Josh, and Adam. Just another slow, breathless day in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. My house sat on a stretch of dirt road surrounded by open fields, a long driveway, and an old shed at the edge of the yard. We'd been there for hours. Then this kid appeared. He was maybe 16, older, taller, black hair, messy, gray shirt, jeans, and a stillness about him that didn't match the day. He walked straight up like he already knew us, asked if we wanted to even the teams out. None of us answered right away. Adam asked, Who are you? He said, Keith, I live up the road. I'd lived there my whole life, never saw him once. But he smiled again and said, "You've got the perfect yard for manhunt." We laughed, confused. How would he know what my yard looked like? But in the heat of the moment, it didn't matter. It sounded fun. We split into two teams. Keith insisted on hunting first, said it was his favorite part. He counted by the shed while we scattered. I ran behind the garage, crouched low, then slipped into the shed. The air inside smelled like dust and gasoline. I found a pile of taps in the corner and crawled beneath them. The door creaked shut. Silence. Minutes passed. My heart beat so loud it hurt my ears. Then the door creaked open. The tap ripped away in one fast motion. Adam laughed. "Got you." We both laughed it off, heading back to the patio. Everyone came back one by one, except Keith. At first, we joked about it. Maybe he was too good at hiding. But after 10 minutes, we stopped laughing. Josh shouted into the woods. No answer. Adam shrugged, said maybe he got bored and left. We agreed. But as the sun dropped, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, watching from the tree line. When everyone left, I went inside. That's when I saw it. Right beneath my bedroom window, a piece of rope. Old, frayed, dirty. I picked it up. It looked like it had been sitting outside for months, but I knew it hadn't been there before. I threw it aside, but my gut told me it was his. That night, around 11, I was half asleep when I heard footsteps outside my room. Slow, bare feet on wood. I called out, "Dad?" No answer. The steps stopped outside my door. I stood up, heart racing, and locked it. Then, the sound of the front door opening, closing. I ran to my dad's room, shook him awake. He didn't question it. Grabbed his shotgun, checked every room, every closet, even outside. Nothing. But every door and window got locked that night. The next morning, I told my friends. They laughed, said Keith was probably some random weirdo messing with us. But Ryan looked uneasy. He said Keith barely talked the whole game, just stared, like he was learning our faces. That night, I tried to sleep again. Didn't make it past 2 a.m. because that's when I heard it, scratching. At first, I thought it was branches, but it was too rhythmic. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Right on my window. I froze. Didn't want to look, but I had to. I lifted the blind just a crack, and there he was. A figure, inches from the glass. Face hidden in the dark, still wearing that grey shirt, those same jeans. I screamed. My dad burst out of his room, shotgun in hand. He ran outside barefoot, shouting. The figure was gone. We stayed up the rest of the night with every light on. By morning, my dad was still furious. Said if that Keith kid ever came back, he'd make sure the police found him before he did. We never saw Keith again. Days passed, weeks, but the yard never felt right after that. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the edge of the woods, expecting to see a grey shadow moving between the trees. And every now and then, when the wind died, I thought I could hear the faintest scraping sound against my window, like he was still there, testing the glass. We never found out who he really was. No one on the road had heard of him. No one lived just up the path. And that old rope I threw away? The next morning, it was back under my window. Same dirt, same knots. That was last July. And I haven't played Manhunt since. Because sometimes when someone new joins the game, they're not there to play. They're just looking for a way in. 3 games, 3 nights, different towns, same rules. You hide, something finds you. Maybe it waits for you to play again. Maybe once you count the numbers, it learns your voice and keeps listening. Every story tonight started the same way: a dare, a laugh, a door closing. But they all ended the same too, with someone realizing they weren't alone. From the quiet house, to the whispering woods, to the stranger in the yard. It doesn't matter where you play, only that you do. And maybe that's the real rule, that once you've hidden in the dark, you never really stop. The game remembers you. It always does. 1, 2, 3. Don't move. This was Fearology. And if you ever hear someone counting in the dark, don't answer back.